the season. How has the installation been at fall camp?
Good. I think it's all in here pretty much. I mean, a few tweaks here in specialties for the game plan, but got it all in, and trying to hone it and refine technique and be consistent is the biggest thing. So continue working on that.
Do you have a sense of who your starters are going to be? There's a lot of returning guys this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a good sense. There's still some competition that'll probably go into the into the next here couple weeks. There's some spots that I think we feel pretty good about, and then some spots that guys have separated themselves, and some spots where there's a little bit muddier, not quite as clear. So the competition will continue, and even possibly a situation where we'll play multiple guys at a spot or two.
I don't know if it's a cloud or the big question with this team is the quarterback position, obviously. How much does that impact what you and your guys are doing on the O-line?
Not a bunch. I mean, our job is to block it up. Doesn't matter who's taking the snaps. So it doesn't really affect our job. I really haven't thought about it too much. I don't think our guys have, quite honestly, either. Just about doing their job.
Yeah. Okay, Mose, the only offensive All-Mountain West preseason player. What does he bring in terms of skill set and leadership to the line?
Well, he's a wise old sage. He's been here, I think, second longest of anybody in our room and played the most. So he's got, he's got a lot of experience, and he's quiet. And shoot, I learned as a young guy that still waters run deep. So he's a deep thinker, but he's a big, strong guy. Plays with an edge. He's like E.F. Hutton. He doesn't say much, but when he says something, people listen. And so we're really trying to get him to step out of his comfort zone, because he's a little bit of an introvert and quiet by nature, but for sure the most experienced guy and the leader of our group. And so he's done a good job of stepping up and leading, and very excited to have him in our group.
So Eastside and Spomer, their first year last year, but they were a constant in the O-line. So what jumps have they made in year two here?
I think, I didn't obviously get to watch them in the fall besides on tape, but I think all those guys have made big jumps since spring ball when I was here. Those two, Braylon Nelson, I think, has had a great camp, and he was solid in the spring, but I think, really elevated in fall camp. He worked his tail off this summer. I think all of our guys have really improved, which is why we've got competition, and competition is a good thing because it's going to take depth. Sure, you'd love to play the same five at the same position all year, but that's not, really the world that we live in. Guys get nicked, and you got to be able to have the best five up at any time. So not only is it who's your five, but who's your six, who's your seven, who's your eight, and, position versatility with guys, not just being able to, hey, I'm not just a left guard. I play all the inside three, or whatever the case may be. So it's one thing we've really tried to develop, and we're continuing to work on.
You brought in a couple of transfers. What have they brought to the depth of the O-line?
Yeah, I think that's just it. They brought depth. They brought competition. They've been constant. I think they're both, I would say, in the two deep right now, and competing and doing a good job. And, shoot, we're lucky because we've got what I hope and I think, and people tell me it's a pretty good defense. Seems like they're pretty good. So iron sharpens iron, and when you get to compete against a really good group of guys, it's sometimes maddening, but big picture wise, it's a great advantage. And so the competition part's been great, and adding those guys to our group this summer's been good.
And lastly, for me, the last week of fall camp, what's the focus?
I think the big focus is just honing in on the details, that consistency part. Any good offensive line is not occasionally great, they're consistently good. And so the occasionally great will take care of itself, but we need to be consistently good in protecting the quarterback and being able to run the football and understand. Really, it just comes down to doing our job and understand that physicality is a choice that every one of them is going to make on every snap. And they're embracing that, and we're getting better, and we've got a long way to go, but the improvement's been constant and has been there, so excited about that.
We talked about the returning players, but you're the first-year coach leading them. Can you kind of share the personal journey that you took to get here? Like, how does a guy go from Montana State to Fresno State?
Well, on an airplane. No, I'm just kidding.
I guess I meant like, was there a call?
Yeah. I was, I'd been at Montana State for 7 years, and really enjoyed it there. My son's on the football team there, and I'm a Montana guy, born and raised. My wife's from Montana, and I'd always kind of had in the back of my mind, or maybe in the front of my mind, that someday I'd love the opportunity to be an FBS offensive line coach. And didn't know if that was in the cards, but shoot, when Coach Tedford called me, anybody who's anybody on the West Coast knows who Coach Tedford is and the things that he's done in his past. And just a great tradition here. Shoot, even Montana State Coach Sweeney was a Montana guy and a Montana State guy. And so I knew a lot about Fresno State, even as a young guy growing up. And so very honored to be here and, love the guys in my room and excited to compete and hope not just carry on the tradition, but even build on it and do good things.
Have you ever been in this stadium on game day or kind of seen what that atmosphere's like?
I haven't. I've heard about it, but I've heard, you hear lots of things, but I know it's probably more than even I can imagine. So excited about it.
And can you just take me back to that phone call with Coach Stedford? Like, were you pinching yourself when you're on the phone? Were you asking yourself, like, how did this guy find me? You know what I mean?
Honestly, I was trying to act cool, but by cool, calm, inside though, I was like nervous, obviously. My heart was beating 1,000 miles an hour, but shoot, we talked for 30 or 40 minutes and it was easy to see that he's a very blue collar, down to earth, no nonsense kind of guy, which is kind of the way I was raised and how I cut my teeth and things that I believe in. And so it kind of seemed like a natural fit. And I didn't know him previously, but I know people that knew him, or, and that's kind of the deal. So I was surprised by the opportunity, but excited by it at the same time.
And is your son still playing up there? Or?
He is.
Okay.
He'll be a redshirt freshman. He's actually just had surgery here this spring, so he's rehabbing and hoping to get back to playing here quickly. But
are you going to have any of your family come out for games or anything like that?
Yeah, my wife and daughter obviously live here. They'll be going back to Bozeman sometimes probably to watch games when it. But yeah, we're a big football family. My parents, they won't come to every game, but they came to every game in Montana. They're still back in Montana, so we'll have a lot of Montana Bulldogs that make their way out here to watch.
And last question is like first impressions of Fresno. Like, what do you as a Montana guy, what do you make of the city?
It's hot. It's a lot hotter, but I don't have to shovel snow in January. I figured that out when I got here. Honestly, been so busy that I haven't really done a whole lot. So kind of stay in my little neck of the woods in Clovis when we do get a little time and see the sights. But, been up to the lake a few times, and honestly, that part's not that much different. I mean, the mountains are just a little bit farther than they are in Bozeman, but definitely close enough that you can get to them. So, but I think, very blue-collar community, which is not that much different than Montana. Bigger than anywhere in Montana, but
Awesome.
for sure similarities.
Thank you, Coach.
You bet.